Joe Anderson and Al Clopine of Pure Financial Advisors have the answers to your retirement plan. This is your money, your wealth.
Hey, how does the average person create significant wealth when life gets in the way? Apparently, this picture here is what the vision of our producer is when it comes to accumulating wealth. But how does the average person do it? Life gets in the way. You got kids, you got school payments, you got mortgage payments, you got daily living activities, and maybe you might want to go on a small vacation. How do you find time to save? How do you find time to create that wealth? Stick around. We're going to show you how, and it's not as difficult as you might seem. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Joe Anderson. I'm a certified financial planner, president of Pure Financial Advisors, and I'm with my partner, the big man. There's Big Al Clopine. He's sitting right over there. He's going to break things down for us when it comes to creating significant wealth. But I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Joe, I still want to have fun. I still want to go on those vacations. The kids still have to go to school. How do we do it? Stick around. That's the financial focus. You know, money's not everything. Apparently, our producer thinks it is today. Because when you look at happiness and wealth, right, it's not always about money. But the first thing that you have to do is you have to get a plan in place to figure out exactly what you want to do. That's going to determine how much wealth that you actually need to provide that lifestyle. To break down the show, without further ado, let's bring on Big Al Clopine. Alan, it's difficult to save. I mean, we've seen the studies. Average person doesn't have a lot of money in their 401k plans because life gets in the way. But if they follow simple steps, I think it won't be as difficult as maybe people might seem.
Well, Joe, I think that's the key because you're right. We see a lot of people, some have saved, but many have not. So now it's really just a matter of having a few strategies to help you to save because, Joe, as you just said, life does get in the way. But how about this? Let's talk today. Let's have some fun today. Let's talk about creating and building wealth. And so right off the bat, let's get into who tends to create more wealth, and that's those that have a written plan. We'll go what should be in a plan and why it is so helpful. And then number two, learning to live within your means. I know that's tricky, but in some cases you don't have to cut that much to be able to live within your means and end up saving a lot of money. Then let's, second part of the show, we're going to get right into how to accumulate a lot of wealth, aggressive accumulation. And then we want to get into some wealth busters. There's some things that you may be doing or you may have done and you want to watch out for because these can really do a number on your wealth. And then finally, taxes. Let's not forget taxes because that can be one of your largest expenses. And Joe, I think with these 5 things, we're going to have some fun today. It's all about building wealth and you're right, money is not everything, but it helps, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't help. So first thing you got to do here, right, is you got to create that written plan. You have to start with the basics. It's like, okay, well, what do we want to do with the money? Start here, right? Know your starting point. Guess where you want to go. You have to adjust over time. You want to make sure that you create a savings goal that increases over time as well. I know we always start savings, but you have to increase the savings each and every year when you get an increase in pay or if you get a bonus. And then you got to keep your debt under control. And then you also have to take a look at investing for the long term. A lot of this stuff, when it comes to overall financial planning, it's simple, but it's never easy to execute. We understand that. But you have to start with a written plan. Because if you take a look at the statistics, Harvard Business School did a statistic and they said, all right, well, let's take a look at people that have a written plan. Look at here. All right, well, 3% had a clearly written goals out. 97% didn't have any goals. Look at the results, Al.
Yeah, there's no question that 3% group had 10 times more earnings than the other 97%. And really, when you think about it, if you just write down some goals, and it takes a little while to figure out what your goals are, and the thing is you don't know exactly what you want to do. That's why you need to guess and adjust. But once you have goals, you have something to monitor. And Joe, it's all about being accountable and making adjustments as necessary.
I mean, you need a starting point, right? You need to at least write something down. If you write something down on paper, you're going to hold yourself accountable, right? We can always think about, yes, I would like to retire, I'd like to do something, but if you don't write it down, it's very difficult to accomplish it. So here's the starting point, right? So let's just take a look at what you got. So you say, all right, well here, let's calculate the starting point. You have a little bit of money here. I have $150,000 in retirement accounts, and then we add this, maybe I got some cash. Here's the starting point. I got $200,000. Let's just figure out there, now what do I need to do? That's where we are today. How do I go about accumulating the wealth that I need to retire? Start there. Write down your goals. Hey, I would like to accumulate a certain amount of wealth, or I'd like to retire at a certain amount of age, right? Then write down exactly what you have, and then you can start planning. Now, what do you need to save? What rate of return that you need to generate, Al? This is key. I mean, I think a lot of times people don't necessarily take the time to actually write this down.
Well, I think that's true. So starting point is really the first thing you got to do. And then it's like, let's look at what's possible, right? So in terms of accumulation, let's say you start with a couple $100,000 like we just went through in this example. And if you got 10 years till retirement, let's say you're saving $15,000 a year at 7% rate of return, you're going to end up with $600,000. You've tripled your money in 10 years. How about 20 years from retirement? Look at this, you're a millionaire. You got almost $1.4 million. And if you've got 30 years to retirement, you've got almost $3 million. It's the power of compound money, what it can mean for you. And of course, this illustrates why you need to start as soon as you can. But I know a lot of you're in your 50s and you don't have a lot accumulated. It helps to start wherever you're at. You want to start right now, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, if you just go back to that chart, it's like, all right, well, here, if I got 10 years, if I can save $15,000 a year, right? So that's included in employer match. And if you're putting into a 401k plan, it's not really costing you that much because of the tax deduction. That's $600,000. That's a ton of money. So everyone gets this feel of hopelessness, right? And I understand that $15,000 a year is a lot of money, but then you have to look at, all right, well, do I want to only live for today, or do I want to plan for the future? Then I think a lot of people can put things through the asset test now.
And sometimes, Joe, it's all about living within your means, right? It's a matter of just taking a check as to what your real income is and what are some things that you can do to sort of keep that in check. And I think right off the bat, number one is don't worry about the Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses. You know what? You don't even like them that much anyway. Don't worry about it. Live your own life. How about this? Cooling off period. This is actually something that's very, very important. You've got something that you have to buy, absolutely have to buy. I'll tell you what, wait 2 weeks and see if you still have to buy it. I bet you in a lot of cases you won't have to. Learn how to enjoy free things, going to the beach, hiking, whatever. And then here's another really important one, save for purchases rather than putting it on credit. Because when you put it on credit, now you've got the credit card debt, you've got interest payments. It's very hard to build much wealth when you're in debt.
Yeah, I like that whole cooling off period.
Yeah. Do you do that?
Oh, all the time, all the time. You know, I had an impulse purchase just recently. I threw out my back, and I tell you, I wish I had a really cool story, like I was in an MMA fight, but no, I was doing laundry. And I killed my back. I can barely walk. So I bought this machine that is going to tip me upside down, and I'm going to sleep like Batman.
Oh boy. Well, you tell me how it works.
Yeah, it costs like 15 grand.
Can you return it if you need to?
It's like $500. We'll see how it works. All right, we got to get the heck out of here. We got to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We're going to talk about how do you accumulate wealth while you're working. I know it sounds difficult, but it's not as difficult as it might seem. Start with a written plan. Do it right now. You're in bed. I know you are. Just grab a pen and paper. We'll be back in just a second. Good morning, everyone. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Hey, welcome back. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Joe Anderson, Big Al. Good morning, everyone. Talking about how do you accumulate wealth while you're still working. It's a little bit of a challenge, but it's not as challenging as you might think. Before we get in, let's see how you did on the true-false question.
I should fully fund my retirement accounts before I pay off my credit card balances. Boy, that's a good question, and we get that one all the time, and different financial planners will answer that differently. Here's my answer. I think it's most important to start your retirement fund, certainly to your 401k match, if you have a 401k or a 403b, because you put in $1 and your employer contributes $1. So I think you start there. maybe you stop after your match and then get those credit card bills paid off and stop using your credit cards and then go back to your retirement and fully fund it. Joe, agree or disagree?
Well, yeah, sure. I think the sooner we start saving for retirement, the better off we're going to be. But I think where you have to start first is making sure that you have enough cash reserves on hand, too, because here's what people do. They'll take all the cash that they have in their savings account, pay off the credit card. Next month, guess what? You have no cash, you go back to the credit card. So it's just this cycle that kind of blows people up. So you just have to take a look at, all right, well, I want to make sure I have some in my cash reserves. I'm going to slowly start paying off those credit card debts. And yes, I'm absolutely going to start saving for my retirement. So it's almost a three-legged stool that you have to take a look at.
Yeah,
so.
good advice. Joseph Anderson, you got 60 seconds. You're going to get a really tough question about retirement. And this is the countdown to retirement.
Joe, I've heard that setting up Roth IRAs are a real effective way to build wealth. Could we talk some more about that?
I think the question was, is Roth IRAs a good way to accumulate wealth? And I think the answer is absolutely yes. All right, so let's first define what a Roth IRA is. A Roth IRA is an after-tax contribution that you can invest in. It's a shell account that you can invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, cash, CDs, whatever. That money grows 100% tax-free. I think a lot of individuals, especially watching this program right now, has done the opposite. They did the 401k plan that they got the tax deferment, but they got a pre-tax deduction going in. But when you start pulling those dollars out, it's going to be 100% taxable to you at ordinary income rates. There's been a rule of thumb that you will be in a lower tax bracket in retirement. Al and I think that a lot of people watching the show might actually be in a higher tax bracket or in the same tax bracket. So having some diversity when it comes time to start taking distribution is key. Having some money that is tax-free to you, some money that is taxable to you, and some money that is tax-deferred at ordinary income is by far the best way to stretch out your money as long as you can in retirement.
Wow.
Oh,
that was
right there.
Spot on. Perfect, Joseph Anderson. I like it, and I wholeheartedly agree. In fact, we're talking about building wealth and accumulating wealth, and if you can have some of your assets in the tax-free account, so Roth IRA, that grows 100% tax-free. Once you get the money in, all future income and growth is 100% tax-free. So now let's go back to our show topic, which is creating a lot of wealth, accumulating wealth, and let's get into some ways to accumulate actually quite a bit of wealth when you're working. So here's the first point, and I think this might be the absolute most important point, which is starting now, not next month, right now. Start right now, and the procrastination is what gets a lot of people. Autopilot your savings. If you have a 401k, they have that automatic payroll deduction coming right out of your paycheck so you don't even see it. Try to work up to 15% for your paycheck. I know that's going to be difficult. Some of you will start 3 or 4%, add a percent or two each year as you get pay raises. The 401k match, certainly take advantage of that because that's free money. And then autopilot your investments too, because in other words, when you have money going into your 401k, make sure that it's set up properly to go to the right investments and not just cash, for example, because, Joe, rates of return matter in this whole equation.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, Pension Protection Act of 2006 came out, and then that's what started the auto enrollment for 401k plans. And so it's been 10 years, and it's been somewhat of a success. They were anticipating a lot more people saving for retirement because you're automatically enrolled. So if you're not enrolled in your 401k plan, that is the first thing to do. Then you have to take a look at, all right, well, here, given certain rates of return, and if I have a period of time, what's the end result look like? And then Alan put this nice graph together for you.
Yeah, and Joe, this is someone that saves $15,000 a year for 35 years, and you got different rates of return.
Right, so let's say if you're a 65-year-old man, all right, or female, and this is 35 years. So by the time you reach age 100, and if you save $15,000 per year, at, what do we got for a rate of return? Let's say at 8%, right there, you'll have $2.5 million by the time you die.
So the key really is only to, you got to live to 100.
You got to live to 100 and keep saving.
Or you can start age 30.
You can start early. That's the key. You always have to start early. But I know a lot of you say, well, I don't have 35 years to save. I understand. But what you take a look at is the compound interest of time. Start now, and then, you know, you don't have 35 years to save, but you do have 10 years. You do have 15 years. You do have 20 years in most cases. Your kids have 35 years. So wake them up and say, hey, start saving as much as you can because compounding the time value of money is key. Another thing to take a look at is that we use certain rates rates of return here, 4%, 6%, 8%, and those assumptions are key. So how do you go about getting a 4% rate of return, a 6%, 8%? It's really taking a look at, all right, well, how is that allocation measured? How are you investing the overall money? At 4%, it's $1.1 million over a 35-year time period. But if you get to 8%, it's 2.5. Now, to get that 8% rate of return, Alan, you have to take on risk. You have to have the right portfolio. So if I'm in my 20s and 30s, you can afford to take on a lot more risk than someone in their 50s and 60s. But the funny thing is, the statistics are out. Most millennials, the youngest generation that has money to save, is not investing in the stock market. They're not understanding what the stock market is, and that's the people that should have most of their money in the stock market. At least 100% of their allocation should be allocated there because they have the time. Now, for you that are watching, how should you go about invest? You want to make sure that you have a globally diversified portfolio.
Yeah, I think that's right off the bat, because you never know which asset class is going to do the best in any given time. And even if you're 60 years old, really think about it this way. You may live till 90, 95, 100, so you've actually got a pretty long time frame, even though you may think, boy, I got to go all safe. Because that's a big mistake we see retirees make, is they go 100% safe in cash or short-term bonds, but you need certain amounts of rate of return. So let's talk about investing, how to get that rate of return. So number one is to invest and diversify globally. So it's not just U.S., it's investing around the globe, because a lot of opportunity is in companies in other countries. We believe it's best to avoid market timing, because you never know which way the market's going to go. Just stay invested. The statistics bear that out. Stick with low-cost funds, because as we just saw, when your investments are expensive, when they have high internal charges, you're not going to make near as much. And then have a rebalance to target. In other words, when a certain asset class gets higher than you want it to be relative to your total investments, then go ahead and sell some of that to get right back to the target. And when an asset class is too low, buy to get back to the target. Constantly forcing you to sell high, buy low. And isn't that what we're supposed to do, Joe?
Right, and you have to start now. Procrastination will always be the detriment to your financial success. So if you're going to start saving at age 30, age 40, age 50, take a look at the difference here. So if I'm looking, again, with that same assumption, if I can save $15,000 a year at a 7% rate of return, retiring at age 65, right? If I start at age 30, I'm going to have a couple $1,000,000. If I'm 40 years old, I'm going to have close to $1 million. If you wait till 50, look at that, it's $375,000. So save as early as possible. I think we all know this, it's common sense, but still procrastination always gets in the way, and I get it, because there's always something else that the money has to go to. But if you take a look and, you know, what am I saying? Save it for yourself first.
Well, it's
save it for yourself. Pay yourself first.
Well, you are working hurt, and so I do appreciate you being here.
It is called paying yourself first. If you pay yourself first, most people pay themselves last. You don't want to do that. Don't pay yourself last, pay yourself first.
Yeah, and some people don't really even know what that means. And that just means, yeah, before you pay your bills, make sure you got money going into savings. If you got a 401k, it comes right out of your paycheck. That's paying yourself first, right? That's one way to do it. Another way, some of you don't have a 401k. Just have an automatic withdrawal right to your savings account. It could be to an IRA, it could be to a Roth IRA, it could be just to a savings account. Do that first, and then you'll be in a lot better shape. Joe, here's another wealth buster, I would say, which is out of control debt. And a lot of folks have debt, and it's easy to know why, because we're trying to live that Southern California lifestyle. And guess what? It's expensive. But if you have that, make a real attempt to pay these off as soon as possible. Your credit card debt, your car loans, your student loans. Now, here's a case where you probably do need to sacrifice a little bit. You got to make some pretty big changes for a little while to get that paid off, and that's going to allow you to create a lot more wealth in the future. And then certainly, when you want to buy something, try to save up for it, Joe. I mean, a lot of people buy stuff on credit because they get a 6-month layaway, no interest, and then they end up paying tons of interest and they never get caught up.
Right. I mean, those teaser rates are killers.
Right.
You know, you can get, you know, six months free interest, and it's like, oh, wow, you know, I always needed this, and, you know, I'll pay it off in 6 months.
Yeah. And then
but guess what? It's 6 years later.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then here's something else, Joe, which is having a plan B, right, for risks. And when certain things happen in life, you got to have a plan for them.
Right. This is one of the first things that you want to make sure that you take a look at in your overall financial plan. You could get laid off. You get forced into early retirement. How about if there's a long-term care need or a death or disability? This will blow people's financial plan wide open. So you want to make make sure that you have emergency cash reserves on hand just in case that there is an unexpected layoff. If you're forced to retire early, this is the commitment that you have to make right now to make sure that you start saving. And then if there is a long-term care need, you don't buy long-term care insurance for yourself, you buy it for your spouse if you're married. Because guess what? That is extremely expensive and it just drains the asset of the entire family. And of course, if there's death or disability, you want to make sure that you're able to protect that income, that capital, that human capital is so important. It's our ability to earn an income, that cash flow that comes in for us to save and buy those consumer goods and services and have fun. You want to make sure that you protect it. So, hey, we have to take a quick break. When we get back, though, what I want to do is I want to flip the show to you because we got some very interesting email questions. I think Al and I are going to have a little bit of fun with this, so don't go anywhere. Show's called Your Money or Wealth. Hey, welcome back to the program. Show's called Your Money or Wealth. Joe Anderson and Alan Clopine hanging out today. Stick around. We got your emails coming up in just a second. But before we do that, let's go to the true-false question.
Buying a home is generally better than renting, provided I plan to live in the home for more than 5 years. I would say that's generally true. It's not a guarantee that you're going to make money. You still could lose money because there's closing costs when you buy the home and closing costs when you sell the home. So there's no guarantee. But the longer you live in the home, the more likely that you actually can make some money.
Yeah, how about if you bought in 2003?
Yeah, or you bought it in 2006. It would not have been fun. So that can happen. but I would say if your time frame is less than 5 years, I might seriously consider renting instead of buying.
Well, I think I could probably agree with that. I would say more of a 10-year time frame.
Yeah, I don't.
Because that's long-term. 5 years is still a little bit short with all the closing costs and everything else. Trying to sell it, the market's volatile. I don't know. So let's kind of wrap this up, Al. There's one last thing when you're looking at accumulating wealth, and this is near and dear to Alan's heart because it has to do with what? Taxes.
It does, Joe. And so during your working years, here's a few things you can do. Make sure you maximize your retirement plan opportunities. If you have a 401k, 403b, it's $18,000 that you can put in, or if you're 50 and older, it's $24,000. Consider purchasing a home rather than renting. You can write off the mortgage interest and the property taxes. Make sure you're tax efficient when it comes to your non-retirement accounts and tax loss harvest. If you have positions that go down temporarily, or they go down generally, you sell, you buy a related asset class, you create a loss on your tax return. And there's many, many charitable strategies. So Joe, it's that's one of those things where if you can save on taxes, you can actually build wealth that much quicker.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that's missed quite a bit because if I can save money in taxes, I can take less risk in my overall portfolio, and I have the same amount of income with a lot less taxes. So, hey, let's flip the show to you. We got a couple of emails. We're running out of time, so let's get to the email bag.
All right, this is Sylvia Kensington. I'm 32 years old. My employer has an automatic enrollment feature in their 401k, which I'm taking advantage of. Will I end up saving enough to retire when I'm 65? And that's a great question, Sylvia, because a lot of companies do have an automatic enrollment. Usually it's around 3 or 4% that they'll have you withhold from your pay. Some plans, a small amount of them actually increase that year after year. Many plans don't. So if you're only saving 3% and you do that for year after year, that may not be enough. So maybe look towards increasing that yourself over time. Yeah,
I would say if you were maxing that plan out, Sylvia, I'd say you're a little bit more on track. Trying to get to 15% of your income. That's the goal, not 3%. Try to max that thing out. So just because you're automatically enrolled at 3% does not mean that you're going to be on track for retirement. Let's go to the next one.
All right, this is Ted in Mission Valley. And he asked, I want to buy a home eventually, but I don't think I will be able to if I properly fund my 401k. What should the bigger saving priority be to maximize building my wealth? Ted, that's a really good question. I actually would like you to do both. I want you to save in retirement, but make sure you set aside some cash for a home that you want to buy at some point as well. You can't really do one and exclude the other.
How about if you did, though? I mean, I think that's the question, right? So we're in Southern California. So you have to take a look, all right, well, here, maybe if you're going to downsize and move to Minnesota, Tennessee, or something that has a little bit lower cost of living, does a house make sense here? Because you can use leverage. You have all-time low interest rates. And the property values in San Diego or Southern California grow higher than other parts of the country. So, I mean, that's a very interesting question, because if you're looking to downsize using some of that equity to then, in your retirement, to use that to fund retirement, you would have to run the numbers and put, a little pen to paper, as they say. But yeah, I agree with Al. I think you should do both. You want to be a homeowner, and you also want to start saving for your retirement. So that's it for us. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Join us again next week. We have another phenomenal show lined up for you. It's going to have to do with something about money and wealth and happiness and all sorts of good stuff. So, hey, have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.